Gangster movies are responsible for some of the most iconic scenes in all of American cinema.
Somebody messes with me, I'm gonna mess with him.
The vulgar displays of violence forever burned into our collective retinas from movies like The Godfather, Scarface, and The Untouchables have captivated audiences' fascination with life outside the law for generations. And today, we're going to discuss a film many consider to be the greatest gangster movie of all time, Goodfellas. From Henry Hill's childhood rush of blowing up his first car to Spider's vain attempt to protect his dignity, Goodfellas has more than its fair share of memorable brutality. But in a movie so densely packed with violence, black humor, and quotable moments,
but I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Martin Scorsese and company created a 3-minute Steadicam shot that is as iconic a depiction of the gangster fantasy as there ever was. And they did it all without the crutch of violence. That's right, we're talking about the Copa shot. And for Goodfellas' 30th anniversary, we sat down with this guy.
Hi, Larry McConkey, Steadicam operator extraordinaire.
Larry was the Steadicam op behind the camera for this textbook oneer. He's gonna tell us all about that day on set at the Copa, from its stumbling start.
It was just walking. I'm thinking, this is going to be the worst shoe leather in the history of motion picture. I've got to do something to rescue this. This is terrible. It'll get cut.
To the birth of one of cinema's most revered long shots. This is Art of the Scene. Before we get into Larry's on-set experiences with Martin Scorsese, Michael Balhaus, the cinematographer, and Ray Liotta, we need to talk about how Nicholas Pileggi met Henry Hill, the real wise guy. In 1981, the real Henry Hill was staring down life in prison because of a narcotics charge.
I didn't have no way out. I was a little, you know what I mean?
With few options and no good ones, he turned government's witness, testified against his former friends, and entered the witness protection program. But before leaving his life of crime behind him, Hill's lawyer arranged for one last score, a book deal. After 2 years of almost daily talks with author Nicholas Pileggi, Henry Hill was eventually immortalized in the 1985 novel WISEGUY. Soon after its release, Scorsese read the novel while he was shooting The Color of Money and knew that he had to adapt this book.
I found that the style of the book was so interesting, and I tried to say, boy, if I can make a film like the style of this book, because what's the point of making another gangster picture?
Scorsese collaborated extensively with Pileggi on the screenplay, earning him his first writing credit since 1973's Mean Streets. While it mostly stayed true to the book, Scorsese was responsible for sweeping changes to the film's narrative structure. Instead of starting the story with the childish petty crime of Henry Hill's youth, Scorsese wanted to engage the audience quickly.
What the f*** is that?
So he started the movie at the moment Henry Hill's life was about to unravel. But Scorsese's effect on the screenplay isn't just felt in its sweeping changes, it's also in the small details.
Maury's wigs don't come off!
Moments like these show Scorsese doing what he does best, using visuals to add subtext to a scene. But this skill is on its fullest display during the Copa shot. In the book, Pileggi quickly glosses over Henry and Karen entering the club, using it merely as a vehicle to get them to the table for their first date. Listen to how it's written in the book. On crowded nights, when people were lined up outside and couldn't get in, the doorman used to let Henry and our party in through the kitchen, which was filled with Chinese cooks, and we'd go upstairs and sit down immediately. Admittedly, there is some detail in this meandering sentence, but it's still only one sentence. Over a page of the screenplay is dedicated to the same moment. Scorsese knew that Henry's tip-fueled journey through the Copa's underbelly was more than just a means to an end. It was part of the allure of being a gangster. And Scorsese understood that because he saw it firsthand as a teenager. When we were younger, we'd always get a table right at the stage, and it was fantastic. At least until the wise guy showed up. Then a table came in front of us, and another one, and we couldn't see a thing. It was constant. We would see the tables flying in the air and just think, oh no, here it comes. Scorsese's teenage memories of watching wise guys flex at the Copa inspired the Steadicam shot's subjective subtext, providing a deeper layer that Pileggi's prose just didn't have. Scorsese knew that taking Karen to the Copa was like a mafioso courtship display, and he said as much in interviews. It had to be done in one sweeping shot, because it's his seduction of her, and it's also the lifestyle seducing him. To get that sweeping, seductive one-shot, Scorsese knew there was only one way to do it, a Steadicam. But there was just one problem. They couldn't get permission to go into the Copacabana the short way, so they had to go in the long way, around back.
I got the call probably the day before, and Marty walked us through. It would start here, very specific, with the close-up of the little tip to let him park his car illegally, no doubt. So the rehearsal was just walking, following them, no dialogue, no action, just walking, and down the Byzantine path. We got to the kitchen, and Marty was going right by it, and Michael was saying, no, Marty, no, we have to go in the kitchen. Why? Why would they go in the kitchen? They're going to the club. No, because the light. It's different, the fluorescence in the hall, and then we have to do it. Okay. I don't know why, but yeah, okay. So then we went into the kitchen, came right back out the same door, which made no sense to me either. Why are we doing this? And then all the way into the club. And when we finally got into the club, there was precise action choreographed, the maitre d' and the guys who sat at a table at the end, and the dialogue.
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
But after that point, it was just walking. I'm thinking, this is going to be the worst shoe leather in the history of motion picture. And I was determined never to do anything bad with the Steadicam. I was looking out for its reputation and my reputation. I've got to do something to rescue this. This is terrible. It'll get cut. And Marty looked at me and said, so, okay? And I said, sure. And he left. And Ray Liotta saw my eyes widening, I think, and said, Larry, would you like me to stay and help work it out? Yes!
While Scorsese knew the broad strokes of what he wanted the Steadicam shot to be, there were still plenty of little details that needed to be taken into account before cameras were ready to roll. And like all good collaborative filmmakers, Scorsese trusted his cast and crew to work out the details.
I learned early on to just take control. In effect, de facto, I became like a director of the scene once it was turned over to me. And I was not afraid to ask anyone for whatever help I needed.
Determined not to let down the Steadicam community, Larry dug in and started to work out the kinks with Ray.
So what I did was start going through really just technical exercise. Okay, as they walk down the stairs, it's very unappealing to be really tight to people looking at the top of their heads. So the wider, the better. So you can see the stairs, see them going down. But now by the time they turn the corner and go down the hallway, I want to be close to them again. And I had to figure out a way, essentially, for them to wait for me. So I asked Ray, is there something you could do to hold up here for a bit? The first day they said, well, we do have somebody who could be a doorman. We could do that here. Yeah, let's do that. And then Ray improvised, like giving him a tip. And it was like, that's the theme of this anyway, right? Money creates power and privilege and access. But that was all so that I could get down the stairs without rushing and then be tight enough, follow them around the corner and not lose sight of them. Anyway, we progressed that way. I was walking down the hall and I said, okay, I'm getting bored. And I want to see your face. So let's put somebody in the hallway that I could talk to, he said. And so we brought somebody in, and they started making out, and he made a comment about,
every time I come here, every time you two, don't you work?
That was just so I could see his face and break it up. And then he improvised the dialogue, but we continued like that into the kitchen. And I was worried that we would recognize that we went in a door and came right back out the same door. So the set dressers created a way to change the dressing. So we went in, it looked like one thing, and when we turned around, we came out, it looked like a different door. So that was part of it. And also I wanted a flurry of activity, trays, people crossing the frame just to confuse people, but also just to make it interesting. It kept going that way. There's a point where it was too tight for me to actually get around a corner. Physically, the Steadicam would hit things. If I tried to pan as Ray went around the corner, I had to keep going forward a little further, and then I could pan and see Ray. So, okay, could you talk to the guy, one of the chefs back there? Say something to him or, yeah, sure. So I could look at the chef for a moment and then pan. Throughout, it was all these tricks to allow me to move at the pace and the way I wanted to, physically get around obstacles, but tell a story to keep the audience engaged. With Ray's help, and obviously improvising dialogue and actions and things to help me. And I really didn't understand how perfectly that caught the nature of the scene. Anyway, we got all the way through and we worked out all the careful choreography in the nightclub. The dialogue at least had been written at the end of the scene. And we finished the whole thing, and this is all without Marty.
But before they could start shooting, they needed to get Scorsese's approval.
And when Marty came back, we were able to show him back on a small video monitor, and I was starting to sweat now because I've been very happy working this all out, but without his input. And then Marty said, no. I thought, oh my God, I totally screwed my career, everything. It's all, what was I trying to do? I'm overreaching. And he said, what is it? I said, no, when the table comes in, it has to fly into the shot and you have to fly after it. So you don't understand. I used to come here and that happened and it stuck with me, that image. That's the most important thing. You have to, okay, Marty, we can do it. That was the only comment he had.
All that prep work paid off. The shot was in the can before lunch, despite the fact it didn't go as smoothly as possible.
We did 9 takes because at the end of all of these takes, the cameraman's supposed to pan over to Henny Youngman and he's supposed to say a line and Henny Youngman would blow his line.
How are you all? I'm glad to be here. Take my wife, please.
So we'd have to start all over again.
While the camera work is the real star of Goodfellas' Copacabana scene, I'd be remiss to overlook the Crystal's influence on its emotional tone. Their 1963 hit song, Then He Kissed Me, ensured the soundtrack is just as vibrant and seductive as the visuals. Dolores Brooks' energetic lead vocals not only provide that giddy first date energy to the scene's soundscape, but the lyrics about a woman being swept off her feet perfectly encapsulate Karen Hill's changing feelings toward Henry Hill throughout this stroll. Furthermore, Phil Spector's wall of sound just saturates the scene with layers and layers of instruments, adding a rhythmic quality to the hustle and bustle of the Copacabana staff and evoking the scene's dreamlike qualities. The Copa isn't presented as a harsh, cacophonous kitchen, but the sweet-sounding memory of a relationship in bloom where the imperfections take a back seat to the overwhelming and euphoric feeling of falling in love.
To me, it was the perfect way to tell that story and to fly through the club like they are, just like you imagine it might be in a dream. So I don't know. It's just, it was perfect.
It's been over 30 years since the Copa shot first graced the silver screen. In the time since, it has been often imitated but never duplicated because true genius can't be duplicated. In 1990, Martin Scorsese set out to make a gangster movie unlike any other. One that fully immerses you into the mob life he witnessed as a young man. And the Copacabana shot might have accomplished that all by itself. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching Art of the Scene. What would you like us to cover next? Let us know in the comments and be sure to check out some other Art of the Scenes or our 12 best long takes in film history. Oh, and one last thing. Don't forget to subscribe to CineFix if you haven't already.